out. Forward. Can you hear me all right? Because my sound was a bit dodgy earlier, so I just want to check.
Also, it's completely fine.
Thank you. Also, feel free, like absolutely no pressure, but please feel free to turn your cameras on, even if you're on mute. It's always a bit easier to speak to faces, but no pressure if that's not the case. So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the best way to do this, if I briefly talk about, very briefly kind of summarize journey, and then I'll leave it in your hands. I'm very happy to answer any questions at all. There are absolutely no dumb questions. Don't be shy. If sometimes you might ask a question I don't know the answer to, and I'll just be honest about that. But otherwise, please don't refrain from asking anything and everything. So, and I'll hopefully be able to help with the questions you do ask. So in a nutshell, I like debate. I'm hugely grateful to. I have built so many close friendships out of debate. It's given me a huge opportunity in law and since then in other areas of my career. So I'll always be indebted to debate and the debate community. So any way I can help, I'm always looking to do that. In terms of my kind of debate journey, I started debating when I was in my last year of high school. I did a bit at school, and then really took it up, took up BP debate at Warwick University. Warwick has, had a very established debate kind of society, but it was still relatively kind of junior compared to the big English institutions. So we'd never broken at Euros or Worlds, or hadn't really won anything of note there. I went in with my big dreams of, eventually, doing very well and winning, anything and everything, which was quite amusing, I think, to my friends there, because they were like, dude, this is not what we usually do. So like, good luck with that. But I was very fortunate. I did have I guess a bit of a natural talent for it, but then realized that to the extent, I learned a huge amount at Warwick from my friends at Warwick, but to the extent I couldn't do that, I was lucky that I can, I'd approach people like, say people like Harish, who are not at Warwick, but then I would kind of befriend them, and they were very helpful. Other senior, like brilliant debaters at the time, and then through a combination of practice and fortune, ended up doing pretty well on the kind of debating, judging, CAing over the however many years since. I just wanted to, before we run into the questions, I thought it would be helpful just to flag 5 key lessons, I guess, from my point of view, that I would encourage all of you to bear in mind, or at least I found very helpful in my development. The first one is I learned a huge amount from making mistakes. So when I lost debates, or when I did well in a debate, but I lost a clash, or I was criticized by a judge, or we got given feedback, I really I tried to take that on board. So I would very much encourage you all, whether you win or lose the debate, or whether you've got good feedback or bad feedback, always try and take at least the one lesson away from any debate or any training session you're in. Try and work on that, right? Because even if in debate, at some point, all of you will, for example, you'll receive a decision you don't maybe agree with. You will think it's harsh or unfair, but there's still a lesson to be learned there. Could I have been clearer? Could I have structured it better? Could I have spent more time dealing with a particular point my opponent has made? So I would very strongly recommend to always try and learn from your mistakes. Like, mistakes will happen, but try and minimize repeating them where you can, because it will hold you back otherwise. Second advice I would make, which this kind of series and this community you've brilliantly kind of put together and are continuing to put together, will help with, which is try and learn from people more experienced, or in my case, just better than me at the time. One of the great things about the debate community is a lot of us are very happy to kind of pass on our knowledge and help where we can. So don't be shy, ask people, organize these kinds of talks and try and take on lessons, even if not everything is going to apply to you. The third one is when you've debated for a while, and I just mean, to be honest, a few months onwards, you should take some time to really analyze yourself, where you think your biggest strengths and weaknesses are, and then try and work on building on those weaknesses. I think there's a temptation with anything in life, not just debate, to focus on strengths and try and maximize strengths. But if you can try and bring up the bottom, the worst bits of your debating ability, it will take you a long way. So for example, I learned this lesson the hard way. European debate championships, for the first few times I went to, it was very normal for a debate about Israel-Palestine to take place. And it would usually take place in, round 6 or 7 or 8, which are really important rounds. And I was, I'd often end up on a lot of points by then. So I would end up in a very high quality debate, but I wasn't that clued up on Israel-Palestine. So the debate would happen. I'd get beaten very comfortably, and then it would really set me back. It took me too long to realize that, I really did just need to spend time learning about the situation, thinking about what arguments to make, etc. And I wish I had done that sooner. So take time to analyze where your weaknesses are and try and build on them. The fourth one is related to this somewhat, which is focus first on what will bring you the most value. So what I mean by that is particular topic areas are less important, in my opinion, to develop rather than core elements. So for example, it is more important to be comfortable with delivering speeches with great structure than it is to be, say, an expert in arguments on communism, because structure will affect every single speech you give. And therefore, if you can improve on that, it will help you in every single debate. But being a master in, say, arguments about communism may only help you in 1 out of 20 debates, say. So it's not that it's not important, but personally, I would prioritize the areas which are going to affect you more often and therefore give you more value. And the final thing I would say is, again, this is also life advice as well. There's always lots of things we can improve on, lots of things we can work on. Don't put pressure on yourself to kind of be brilliant at everything and improve everything at the same time. Try and focus on particular things. So, focus, you might say, right, this month I'm going to focus on structure. Once I'm happy with that, I'll move on to a different area. Don't put pressure on trying to develop lots of different things at the same time. It will be pretty difficult for that to happen successfully. So those are the 5 things I would say, even before we go into a Q&A, I would emphasize, and I wish I'd kind of learned quicker and earlier than I did. So unless anyone has any other suggestions, I'm very happy just to go to a Q&A, and then that will hopefully benefit you the most, rather than me just rambling aimlessly.
Sure. I guess, Stephen, that's the idea, that we going to Q&A. And, thanks a lot for your 5 pointers. Correct. And especially correct, when we were searching,
Sorry, Kumar, briefly.
And impacting arguments, which is primarily that, am I audible?
Sorry, I can hear you again. Sorry, for a second you were on mute, so you out.
Okay, am I audible now?
Yes, yeah, I can hear you now. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm saying thanks for the 5 pointers that, our students and we should take, in back on mind while preparing for debates. That's great. And now let's, we open the floor for questions to come. Our students, whoever have questions, they can sort of come one by one. You can raise hand virtually, and I can sort of unmute them. Then they can unmute once we agree that they will go.
Yeah, sounds perfect.
Okay, so one by one. So first we have Evie Khati. Evie, you can put yourself.
Yeah.
Go on.
My name's Ivy. So, yeah. Okay. So, hi, good evening, sir. So, I just had a debate, right now, just half an hour ago. I had a debate, and unfortunately, my team lost. So, what I wanted to ask you is that I just don't know how to make rebuttals. Like, it's one of the most difficult part of, a debate. So, could you tell me how to do that, rebuttals? Like, it's like a big challenge for me.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for your question. Can I just ask a follow-up question? What specifically do you struggle with?
Rebuttals, getting, rebuttal, exactly. I struggle with rebuttals. Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, but like what element of it? Is it coming up with a rebuttal? Is it that
Yeah, coming up with a rebuttal. Exactly.
or okay. And is that so? Give me an example. So is it, for example, any argument that gets made, you struggle to think of the response? Is it as simple as that?
Okay, so you mean so could you repeat yourself, please?
Yeah, of course. So when you say you struggle with rebuttal,
Yeah.
you're expanding on what exactly it is you're struggling with. Is it, for example, when someone makes an argument, you're struggling to think of a response, or is it you're struggling to think of multiple responses, or is it that you're not sure how to weigh it against your own argument? Is it?
I guess I struggle to come up with a response.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, it's a really good question, and you're absolutely right. The rebuttal, of course, is a hugely important part of debate. I think the first thing I would say is, in most debates, vast majority, the arguments are quite symmetrical, right? So like that, someone will argue, say, for freedom of choice, and then the other person will say there shouldn't be freedom of choice, it should be like government run. Or someone would say, right, I think it's really important that we weigh things on a consequential analysis, and someone else will say, no, it should be a more rights-based, right? So I say they're symmetrical because they oppose each other quite nicely. So I think the first thing to bear in mind with rebuttal is there an argument on my side, right, that directly responds to their argument? Because if that's the case, then your rebuttal essentially is just your substantive argument, but you just flag to the judge or to the audience that it directly responds to the point the other team is making. I think there's a danger sometimes of thinking of rebuttal as like this independent issue in a debate, when actually often it will just be the opposite of, it will just be something that you're already planning on saying. It's just that you direct it against another argument. Moving forward from that, something that I always found helpful with coming up with rebuttal is to think, okay, what is their argument premised on? So, for example, can you give me an example of an argument you struggled to rebut from the debate you had 30 minutes ago?
I actually don't remember, so I'm so sorry.
That's all right. Okay, let's pick one, right? So let's say the debate is this house would introduce capital punishment, right? So death penalty. And the government team says it's going to be an effective deterrent. Yeah, the reason we want to bring back the death penalty is it will deter, it will prevent people from committing, heinous crimes because they're worried about dying. So what I would ask myself when rebutting that argument is, okay, what is that argument premised on, right? So there's a few things here. So the first one is that people are afraid of death. So I would think, okay, is that true? That seems pretty true to me, right? Like, I think there are rebuttals we can make to that premise, but that's not where I'm going to start, because actually that's quite a hard sub-argument, an element of that argument to respond to, because I think a lot of people are afraid of dying, right? So what else is it premised on? It's premised on the idea that before I make a decision to, say, commit a murder, I'm thinking of the consequences, right? That is a lot easier for me to respond to, right? Because hold on a minute. You can concede that people are afraid of death. I don't think you need to, but you can concede that. But you can say your argument on deterrence is based on the assumption that before someone commits a heinous crime, they're contemplating the consequences. We don't think that's the case because A, a lot of the crimes you're talking about, which would have the death penalty imposed, are crimes of passion, or B, to the extent they have contemplated it, irrespective of whether it is death or prison, both of those are terrible. Fear both of them, but when I commit the crime, I don't think I'm going to get caught, right? So it doesn't matter what the punishment is, because I just don't think I'm going to get caught. Because if I thought I was going to get caught, I wouldn't do it, irrespective of whether the death penalty was imposed or not. So that, I would say, is the first question you should be asking. Sorry, the second question you should be asking yourself. So the first question is, do I already have an argument that mirrors the argument they're making? And the second thing I would think of is, okay, what is their argument premised on? Can I undermine that premise? Before I move on, does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Yeah. And the next thing I would say when it comes to rebuttal is try and think of rebuttal not as a wall, right, that you're trying to put up, but rather as something more offensive than that, more attacking than that. Because the issue is, I think, with when people think of rebuttal, is they think of putting up a wall, a shield, right? I'm going to block your attack. But unless your wall is impenetrable, some part of that argument is going to get through, right? You might minimize the damage, but at best you're mitigating. So can you come up with something when you respond that takes, not just undermines what they're saying, but pushes it back the other way? And what I mean by that is sometimes you can, instead of just like defending against an argument, you can turn it into a positive. So for example, someone might say, on opposition in that debate, the problem with imposing the death penalty is that it's inhumane because it takes away your ability to do anything. And like, that's awful because anything that anyone loves is now deprived from them, and that's disproportionate punishment to something you can do, because irrespective of what you should do, you should never be able to lose anything, right? That's just too much. And the temptation there is just to explain why that's not too much, right? Because that would be the direct rebuttal. Mm-hmm. Saying it's too much, I'm saying it's not too much. But how about instead of saying that, you say, good, that's exactly what we want to happen, right? We should be taking away everything. We want them to think we're taking away everything, because that's going to be the trigger for them to stop when it comes to pulling the trigger, right? The actual trigger. That's the thing that makes them think, wait, because I am going to lose everything, I'm not going to do what I otherwise would have done, right?
Yeah.
Try and apply those things. So I think someone's gone off mute. Thank you. So those are the three things I would say when you're trying, if you're struggling to come up with a rebuttal, try that. Try starting with those three thoughts in mind, and I think it will become easier for you. But the exercise I would say to recommend, if went to practice it, is just ask yourself, pick any argument, pick an argument, and as quickly as you can, try and write down responses. The more you do that, the easier it will become for you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Stephen. Thanks a lot. I guess it's a very detailed, way that you have given to our students how to really prepare for a rebuttal. Second, we have Pratikshit. Pratikshit, it will be great. Whoever asking question can put their camera on.
Yes, sir. Just a moment. Yes, sir. So my question was that, have you ever experienced a law where you kept on, losing debates, and if that caused you interest in debating, or maybe you just, how do you, if ever you have lost your passion for debating and still you are here, how have you come over that law, overcome that law?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Yes, I have gone through like spells where I was losing a lot or where I fell out of love with it. It's an excellent question, and one that's actually quite difficult to answer, because I think this, more than the others, is going to be quite unique to everyone in terms of how you deal with that. So I can only speak for myself, and I apologize if this isn't helpful for you, but I'm just going to acknowledge that reality. For me, it comes from, why is it that I've lost the passion for it, or why is it? So let's split the two, right? So let me deal first of all with I think the easier one, which is what happens if I'm losing a lot, but I'm still passionate, right? If that's the case, I try, and when that's happened to me, maybe not at the time, but now looking back, I think that's a positive, because it's a great opportunity for growth. So if you go back to the 5 things I flagged, if you're losing a lot, there's a lot to be learned, right? So it's a great chance for you to learn from that. So why, I had asked myself, and you should ask yourself if that happens to you, why am I losing? Am I making the same mistake different times, or are there different things that need to be improved? Either way, when you lose, it flags deficiencies a lot brighter than if you're winning, right? Because if you're winning, you can ignore the stuff that's going wrong because you've won. But when you're losing, it's very visible what's going wrong. So I would focus on what's not going so well and working out, how can I improve those things? Like I said, is it structure? Is it analysis? Is it rebuttal? Is it I'm not fulfilling my role? Is it a lack of knowledge on a particular area? And then I would target those and improve on those. If the losing leads to a lack of passion, I think that can be dealt with by sometimes just taking a small break away from debate, or saying to oneself, look, the reason I'm not passionate is because I'm losing. Here is why I'm losing. These are the things I need to get better at. Let's get better at it. And I know I'll get better and start winning, and then I'll feel happier about the whole situation. The hardest question is if you fall out of love with debate, but it's not because you're losing, it's because of some other factor. And honestly, that's, like I said, very personal. I think where that's happened to me before, I've just needed a bit of time away from it. And then that passion has always come back. Sometimes it comes back in a different form. So I still love competing, albeit I compete very rarely now, because it's a combination of time, and also there aren't as many opportunities for me as when I was a student. But I'm more passionate than I think I was even when I was a student, of trying to like help other students get better and have the same passion I had and opportunities I had. So passion can come and go in different forms. So a time away from it can help. And also just understanding why that passion's lost. Like I said, kind of querying, is it because I'm losing? Is it something else? And then correcting or trying to deal with that underlying issue. And, again, you guys are very lucky here because you've got a really supportive network, of your peers and your teachers. So you can always speak to them about it as well. And I'm sure that they can help you through if there is a specific issue. I hope that helps. I appreciate that. That is a tricky question to answer. So I hope that helps a little bit at least.
Thank you, sir. It did help.
Thank you.
I guess a couple of questions lined up. Let's take Neha Savio. Go next, and please put your camera on while asking the question.
Okay, sir. So I have a question like sometimes you may feel stuck during a debate, like while answering a question, like just saying you may just feel stuck. So how to solve that?
Again, really good question. I think honestly, the first thing is just to make your peace with it. That in this game, sometimes you're going to get stuck. It doesn't matter how good you are. I have seen people get stuck in World Championship finals, some quite infamously, because obviously it's happened on a really big stage. They get asked the POI, they don't know the answer. It's happened to me in big debates before. I've also been the cause of it happening to other people in big debates. So I think the first and most important thing, just make your peace with the fact it can happen, and the reason that's important is because what happens next. Yeah. So it's the same thing, for example, in an exam, if you get a question you struggle with, what happens next? That itself is not critical. You can get a bad question, you can answer a question on an exam poorly, or you can answer a POI poorly, or you can stumble in an argument. That is not going to be critical, but what happens after that can be critical, right? If it completely tanks the rest of your speech, or using the exam analogy, if you then lose focus and you struggle on the rest of the paper, that's critical, that's a problem, right? So if you make your piece beforehand, so even when we're talking now and you say, yeah, okay, sometimes I will just lose, I'll get stuck, I'll lose, I won't have the answer, but that's okay. I will just have to focus on the next aspect of my speech. That will help you a lot for when it happens, because it will happen. Sometimes it will happen more often than others, right? So let's deal with that aspect of your question, I think, which is, there's two aspects for me, is how do you deal with it when it happens, and how can you reduce the likelihood of it happening? Yeah. So I've answered the first part. The second part is, for me, in debates, if I get confused in a debate, it really boils down to one of two issues. Either I don't understand what's going on in the debate, or the opponent has made a point which just isn't that important. Or three, sorry, they've made a point that just doesn't make any sense. I can't control two or three, right? Really. I definitely can't control three. I can control one for sure. So what I mean by that is, be comfortable with your case and what the debate is about, right? So between you and your partner or partners, understand, right, what is this debate? What's the central point in this debate? What are the main issues? That means that if you then get asked a question, or someone makes a point that makes you stuck, you can just revert to focusing on what the the key part of the debate is. Also, it will help you show sometimes that the reason you've got stuck is because the other side have just completely missed the point, right? And then you can say, wait a second, guys, you're asking me about X, but this debate is about Y, right? Like, you're just missing the point. So, and also it means that even if you don't know if they're missing the point, if you're comfortable that you know what the debate is about, you can just say, look, honestly, I don't quite understand what you're getting at, but the key issue here is why, and that's what we're talking about. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any follow-up questions on the back of that answer?
I guess we have already quite a hand raised. Anjali, you want to go next?
Yes. I actually have two questions. Hopefully you can answer both.
Let's see what we can do.
Yeah. My first question is, how will debating skills help me in my future if I do take up law, which is one of my top 6 options?
Your top 6 options. There's a lot of options you've got, Anjali. I like it.
I keep thinking about my career. I have no clue why.
Okay, no, that's fine. That's fine. It will help you, amongst other things, written and oral communication. It will help you structure your thoughts, which is useful for legal writing, as well as explaining things to other lawyers, to your clients, to laypersons. And it will help you in breaking down complicated legal or commercial issues and being able to think through how you obtain a solution to them. Those, I would say, are your 3 big benefits of law, of debate to law.
Okay, that's actually a good one.
You sound surprised.
No, I haven't actually thought about it. That's the problem.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Well, I've helped you there then. When you make big money as a lawyer, don't forget about me.
I already know what law can do. I can get a lot of money through that.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's quite simple. My second question, how will introvert people be able to compete in debate and law when it needs quite a bit of talk?
Good question. I think law is full of lots of introverts as well, right? Because a lot of it is about legal analysis. So that's kind of sitting by yourself, reviewing cases and legal texts and the factual scenario to come up with an answer. I think what you need to do is have a base level of comfort with the kind of communicating with a client or with lawyers on the other side. And the honest and easy answer there is that practice will help. If you struggle with something, so public speaking or debate or things of that nature, the more you practice it, the more comfortable you'll be, the easier it will be for you as an introvert or an extrovert to do that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but I'm wondering mostly about debate. Like, how will introverts do that? Because I was an introvert, and trust me, I was a big one.
Yeah, I think it may be harder to begin, but once you start, the introverts, you're not set in stone, right? I don't believe that. I don't think someone is an introvert and they'll never be able to do things that the extrovert can and vice versa. It's just for some people, certain things come easier than others. So for an introvert, you might have to practice a bit more with debating. You might need to kind of do a bit more speeches by yourself in front of a mirror to kind of get comfortable just standing and talking. But eventually you will feel more and more comfortable.
That is actually a very good point. And trust me, you do not want to know what I was like as an introvert. I used to sit at my bench all day in school.
Don't worry about it. I have taught and met all kinds of people that's an extrovert, so don't worry about it.
Okay.
That's great, Anjali. I guess we so loving your questions. And I guess Stephen will also be loving the questions that you're asking and see the curiosity that our students have. Ayushi, you want to go now next?
All right. So my question is a bit more off topic. May I ask that?
Yeah, please ask away. If I can't answer, I'll tell you.
Okay, so what's your daily routine and why are you looking the other side when you're talking?
Sorry, I lost that. My connection dropped for a second. What did you say? Sorry.
What's your usual daily routine and why are you looking the other way when you talk?
Why am I looking the other way when I talk? That is a good point. I honestly, it's either because I'm thinking, but also because on my camera setup here is not great, so I don't like staring at it. It's also because all of your screens are blacked out, so I'm not actually talking to anyone, so it's easier to look away because there's no eye contact. So it's your fault, really. My daily routine, good question. At the moment, wake up, have breakfast, occasionally, like I was going to the gym, but as you know, many of them are closed at the moment. Start work either at home or come to the office. So I work in London, so I come into central London, go to the office, speak with my colleagues, work, go for lunch, either with colleagues or friends, hopefully, or if I'm at home, then continue to work, hopefully finish if I'm lucky by like 6-7 o'clock, then either play football, read a book, watch TV, go do something, go meet my friends or family for dinner or go do something fun when they're open. That's about it, I would say, for a weekday.
And what about the weekends? And don't you have any exercise workout routine or schedule?
Do I have any, sorry, what was that?
Workout schedule or anything, sports and...
Stephen, allow me to come in as well. Ayushi, we are just wondering and curious as an audience as to why you ask. We are just curious. If you can give context to Stephen, it'll be helpful.
Sorry, Anjali, what did you ask at the end?
No, I was just speaking to Ayushi. Ayushi, do you want to share some context as to why you asking him that? We are all very curious.
Okay, one major point is that also your daily routine affects how you work. And there are many aspects as such if you see the psychological reasons in that all those arenas. So yeah, that's the reason why I'm asking.
No, it's fine. You don't need context. I think it's an interesting question. Yeah, so workout stuff, I don't have any special way. It depends on what I'm trying to work on at that point in time. And sorry, what was the second half of your question? Your follow-up?
Workout.
Yeah, I answered that one. I don't have any specific answer to that.
Asking you about your weekend.
Oh, sorry, that's the one. Yeah, weekend. Thank
Hobby
you.
was there.
Yeah, weekend. I try and spend as much time as I can with my friends and family. Try and get out, maybe go to the movies, go to see an exhibition, just go meet someone for lunch, speak on the phone. I try and be outside a bit more on the weekends, to be honest, because during the week with work, I'm often inside. So being outside is helpful.
I guess
And the last one. And the last one. Sorry to interrupt. Last one is
I
hobby.
guess I usually go on. You are
Go on, ask the question.
Hobbies, extracurriculars.
My what, sorry?
Hobbies and extracurriculars.
Oh, extracurriculars. So yeah, so debate, football, TV, books, exhibitions, listen to music. Yeah, those are it.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
You're welcome. I'm just very quickly going to answer Nidhi's question because Nidhi's getting quite agitated. I think how it can help. So how will it help with your learning and your English? I think it's a combination of, from what I can tell, even like the app's excellent and it's got lots of different exercises that focus on various traits which help with how comfortable you are with English and how you learn. And then obviously debate, it encourages quicker thinking in a language and different kind of areas that you otherwise wouldn't use in vocabulary and in critical thinking skills, both of which will help any language development. And thanks, Anjali, for summarizing the other 5. I was curious.
Thanks. I guess a lot of questions. We just take 2 more questions, and because we are running, ahead of the time. And Stephen, thanks a lot to being there. Just we are wrapping up. Just last 2 questions. Divya, Dia, you want to go? You are quite waiting. I guess all the students are waiting. We are just loving your answers. So yeah.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, I'm fine for time. So however long you have, I'm happy to stay on the line.
Sure. That's great. Dia, please go on. I guess they're not able to hear you. I guess they are still the same with me. You can rejoin. Snehal, you had asked the hints earlier, like Snehal Chaturvedi. You want to go?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I can see your mouth moving, but I can't hear anything. You can type your question if it's easier.
So, Divya, you can type the question or you can try to rejoin. And meanwhile, Snehal, please go on.
Oh, yeah. So, I have this question that sometimes like I am sure that, yeah, this topic is easy and I am able to debate. But at the moment, the preparation or something that we call like the performance, the pressure to do better, at the end time, we ruin ourselves. And actually, the thing which we were knowing also, we forget it and we lose the debate actually. Like I'm talking about debate only. So how to overcome it, the pressure to perform best that we face?
Really good question. It impacts, as you say, it definitely impacts debate, and it impacts, I think, more generally in other areas as well. I feel my answer is going to be applicable for both. So I honestly, in debate, personally, I love the pressure. So I preferred it when there was a lot of pressure. So I debate better in front of an audience or an out round than I do in an in round. And I also debate better if I'm the favorite rather than the underdog, right? And the reason is, the reason I try to think of pressure as a compliment. So if I asked you to run a 100-meter race against Usain Bolt and win that race, you would feel zero pressure, right? Because with all due respect, you're not going to win that race, right? But if you are feeling under pressure to perform in a debate, for me, that says you have expectations on yourself. And those expectations are not going to be misguided. They're going to be realistic. You think you can do well, right? So try and think of pressure as a compliment to yourself. So when you starting to feel anxious and nervous, tell yourself, look, The reason I'm putting pressure on myself is I know I'm capable. Let's relax. Let's take an, I sometimes do a few kind of, I do a few things which help. So for example, I just close my eyes, I take 3 or 4 deep breaths. I try and focus on the moment. So I try not to think too much of consequences, whether it happens if I win or lose. Just think, okay, what do I have to do? And if everything feels like it's starting to close in on me a little bit, like it gets too much, I try and remember the basics. Okay, what am I going to do? I'm going to stick to my structure, highlight the 2 big points in my speech, and then we'll build from there. And again, with pressure, if you prepare well for something, you're more likely to perform under pressure, right? So whilst it's very good to be confident, try not to allow that to go into overconfidence or arrogance beforehand, right? So, if you're like, oh, I'm really good at this topic, that's good. That should give you confidence you can do well, but don't let it prevent you or from actually putting the work in as well, because then when the pressure is on, you have less to fall back on. Yeah. So I would say 2 things there. Try and change how you view pressure. So 3 things. Try and change how you view it. View it as a compliment to yourself. The second, come up with measures you take when you feel yourself getting pressure. So sometimes I'll walk away, go for like deep breaths. When I used to debate, when I was very young, I used to kind of like shadow box, like, just got rid of some nervous energy for myself. And then the third thing is just make sure you put the preparation in that you can fall back on it. You fall back on your basics. That will kind of help you when you're feeling overwhelmed.
Okay, so and I have one more question.
Yeah.
That it's like when sometimes the opponent uses some author's quote to prove their point. They use everything is fair in love and war, or William Shakespeare, what's in a name. But like if we may not agree to that point, so how to prove them wrong in that situation? Like whatever all authors say is not every time right. Like everything is fair in love and war. We may not agree to it. Okay, no, there should be some rules and regulation in love and also. So
I agree.
how to prove them wrong in that situation?
I think that's quite easy. I think you've summarized it really well yourself. Honestly, I'd get up and be like, that's great. That's one quote from one author. The brilliant thing about literature and history, etc., is there are so many people with different views, right? So the quote by itself means absolutely nothing. So let's have a look at the analysis and then just win the debate, win the point on the analysis and the example. That's all you need to do. Don't get bogged into debating Shakespeare because it's just a waste of time.
Okay, so and one last question I would like to ask.
Yeah.
Okay, so and one last question that like not every time we are productive enough. Like it's something out of the context also, that every time we are not productive enough. Like in preparing a debate also, or sometimes reading some book, we are not that much productive. And in modern world, like online, everything has went online. We have so many distractions also. So how should we like be productive in all these situations also? And if we are getting distracted, how to come back?
Yeah, good question. I think first of all, realize you can't always be 100% productive. It's impossible. So try not to have that expectation on yourself. Again, similar to my answer on how to get better at debate, think about why is it I'm not being productive? Is it because I'm looking at my phone? Is it because I'm opening a particular, I'm always looking at the cricket scores, or like I'm always opening a particular website? Find out what's causing it and then minimize that. So for example, can you put your phone in a cupboard? Can you block those websites? Can you, if you're always walking to the kitchen to get a drink, can you just have a jug of water on your desk? Try and identify what's causing the lack of productivity and then minimizing the chance of that happening.
Okay, I guess, Dia, please go on. I guess you are there with your hands up quite a time. Still the same. Sorry, don't get disappointed. You can write your question. Please write in the chat box. There we will take your question. And Ramita, already you had, I guess, written down the question. You can sort of put it while speaking.
Yeah. Should I answer? Rushel's asked why I took up law as a profession. It was, I think, mainly two reasons. The first is because it allowed me to better utilize my debate skills, which I very much enjoyed. So the kind of constructive arguments, the presenting, the critical thinking. And the second is because I knew I probably didn't want to be a lawyer for the entirety of my life, but being a lawyer as the early part of my life would help develop useful skills to help me transition to any other job in the future.
Thank you, sir.
No problem.
Okay, Vedika and Raptim, sorry, Raptim, please, you still waiting for quite a time.
Yeah, hello, Steven, sir. So I hope all of you are doing well in this tough time. And sir, I just wanted to ask one thing. Since the last 1 or 2 years, I have been taking part in quite a few competitions in the state and national level. And sir, most of the time I run into a problem. The problem is that there's a stipulated time period for every debate. Sometimes per speaker is given 3 minutes, 4 minutes, or sometimes it's even 2 minutes. What I do is that I often cross the time limit, sir. I often end up speaking more, and I end up crossing the time limit basically. So due to which I run into problems like, my marks get deducted, and all the other trouble I face. So sir, I just wanted to ask sir, so how do I practice, or how do I mitigate this problem? Speaking each and every important point or fact within the given time period, and and also sir, how do I prevent myself from over speaking?
Mm-hmm. No, I completely understand. Thank you for your question. It's very difficult, but a very important discipline to build. I appreciate that, especially with 2 minute or 3 minute or 4 minute speeches, it's harder. But if you can master it at that level, it will help you at every higher level where the speech time goes up and up. So what you need to do is when you practice, so practice debates, or when you practice at home, you need to be incredibly strict with yourself, right? So you need to think to yourself, anytime you're coming up with arguments, you need to prioritize these arguments. The most important arguments should always come first, right? And that means that if for whatever reason you're running out of time, even if you sat down at that end, you stopped speaking, you have said the thing you most important, that you wanted to say the most. The second aspect is when you're practicing, you need to stick to that time, because if you're in practice speaking for 5 minutes and then you're going to a tournament where you're only speaking for 2 minutes, it's going to be very hard to adjust. So in practice, you need to speak for 2 minutes. You need to time yourself, you need to stop. If you're realizing you're speaking too much, it means you need to adapt the way you're debating. So for example, it means at least one of the following things are happening. You're making too many points, or you're being inefficient in how you explain a point, right? The first one is very easy to recover from. Like I said, you just prioritize. You make your most important points first, and you think to yourself, look, I've got 3 points, but I only have time to spend 1 minute on each point. So I'm only going to make 2 points. Which are my 2 most important points? The second one is a bit harder, but again, you can do with practice and training. And that is when you make your points in practice and in training sessions, is what do I have to get across here, right? I need to convince someone of this argument. What does that mean? That usually means you follow the following structure. You signpost the argument, you explain why the argument is true. If you have an example, you give an example, and then you tie it back to the debate, right? But you need to be very strict on that. You can't move away, start giving different analogies or metaphors or get distracted by other points. You can't go on like a long-winded story about something. You have to be very focused on the point you're making. The more you do that in practice, the easier it will be to do that in the actual debate tournaments.
Yeah, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, so when you then speak 3, 4, 5 minutes, you will still have that skill. It will just mean you can make more arguments, which are still very focused, each one.
Yeah, sir. If you don't mind, I just have to ask one more question. So, sir, like even right now, like I'm stammering a lot, and this happens in my debate competitions as well. Like if I practice my speech, even if I practice my speech, like 3 or 4 times, in the debate competition itself, I end up stammering, and not just 1 or 2 times, sir. I end up stammering almost, 3 to 4 times, and this causes me a lot of problem. So, sir, can you give some tips like how I can overcome this problem of stammering and all?
Sure. When you stammer, is it coming from you being nervous? Is it coming because you can't remember what you were trying to say, or do you not know why it's happening?
Sir, usually I think the problem, the reason for me stammering in debates and all is that I struggle to form the sentence. I clearly remember all the points. I clearly remember all the sequence of the points and the facts I made prior to the debate competition. But during the debate competition itself, I struggle to put the points in place and form them into a correct sentence. So,
Okay.
sir, that's the reason I think it's I stammer.
Okay, I understand what you mean. I think there's a few things to remember. The first thing is, it honestly happens to all of us. So even now, after many years of debating and being a lawyer and using words all the time, like even in some of the answers I've given to your questions, I've stammered or I've hesitated. So it happens. So just don't worry. Just again, make your peace with the fact it can happen. The second thing is, I obviously haven't seen you in a debate competition, but something that happens quite often to people who stammer is they're talking too quickly. And they talk too quickly, and it means that their brain can't keep up with what they're trying to say, right? And that can then lead to a stuttering or stammering as you try to catch up. Your brain and your mouth are trying to catch up with each other. So maybe next time, just slow your speaking style down a little bit and see if that helps, because I think you'll be pleasantly surprised how, for example, I try and debate at this speed. But if I start trying to debate at this speed, it becomes a lot harder for my mouth and the head to keep in touch with each other because I'm going so quickly, it's harder to think about what I'm going to say next, right? Do you see what I mean? So try and slow it down a little bit. And I think that will help you. And also just remind yourself that, again, this is if you think it's a mental block, remind yourself that you have practiced, you've done the preparation, you know what you're talking about, right? Because sometimes stammering can come through nervousness.
Yeah, sir. Thanks a lot, sir.
You're welcome. So I've got a few questions in the question box. Should I answer those?
I guess any of your last question is, I guess, before coming to the chat, last question, Vedika Bajesh.
Yes, sir. So sometimes what happens during debates is that it while debating, it gets really factual, and the opposing team presents you with a fact, and you can't really rebuttal with a fact because there's not much you can say about a fact. It's a fact. So what do we do in such situations? Because I often get stuck there. They present us with a fact, and then I don't know what to reply. So that's something that.
Are you able to give me an example by any chance?
All right. So just now we were using the example of death penalty. So it just I just remembered one thing that I had read, I think a year back or something, about one person who was put to death penalty, and then it was proven that they were not guilty about whatever they were put for death penalty to, and but it was too late because they had already done whatever had to be done. So that is a fact. Now, if suppose my opposing team was to present me with this fact, I don't know how I would rebuttal with it, how I would tackle that. So that's one doubt I had.
No, I understand. I would say you do a few things. The first thing to remember is there's probably facts on both sides of the debate. And even if you don't know what the fact is, you can just stand up and say, look, even if we accept that's true, and we can't say for sure, right? Unless it's a very well-known fact, like, you know, Spain is in Europe, you know, unless it's something like everyone accepts, we don't know in the debate, right? We haven't got a chance to verify that or not. So you don't have to accept it. You can say, but even if we do accept that, you must also accept there's going to be hundreds and hundreds of cases where the person who's been executed was guilty, right? So, and that what that does is it kind of just nullifies or massively reduces the impact of the fact. Because it's like, okay, fine, we don't even know if it's true, but even if it is, we have facts on our side as well. But really, the most important thing is a fact without logical explanation is pointless, and a fact against very well reasoned arguments is going to lose. So what I would always say is you make a very well reasoned argument. So in the example you've given, I would get up and say, here is why the chances of someone innocent being executed is incredibly slim, right? And then you would give it. So you would say, in our mechanism, you need to have been found guilty to an incredibly high level of evidence, right? Like there needs to be like evidence which corroborates other evidence. So you need, for example, a witness and like medical evidence, right? For that to be proven. Or we would say 3 independent judges on the back of corroborating evidence need to have found you guilty. I would then point out that it's incredibly unlikely that the fact you've given took place under our model, our mechanism, right? So you can say, look, the reality is capital punishment has been introduced in lots of places terribly, right? That's not what we're saying we're going to do. We're going to do it really well, right? We've given you reasons to explain why our method is incredibly thorough and the chances of someone being innocent is incredibly slim. But here's the most important bit using the example you've given. I would accept on government that over time, someone innocent is probably going to get executed, right? You can say, here's why it's incredibly unlikely, but even if, in our case, the odd innocent person gets executed, whilst that is devastating, overall, the benefits outweigh the harms because the number of innocent people we have saved from being killed because of having this deterrent and having executed criminals who now can't go back into society and harm anyone else outweighs the potential that someone innocent could be killed. So even if you don't think our model is foolproof, we're willing to accept that occasionally an innocent person will die for the greater good. So then the fact essentially gets drowned by analysis and logic.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry, I can't hear you at the moment, actually.
Am I audible now?
Oh yeah, now I can hear you.
I think we are done with the questions. Only questions that we have in the chat that we will take up. Otherwise, if anyone want to go, they can leave. And before wrapping up, I want to say that as we are organizing Indian Debating League, correct, the highest debating competition in India, we will love to have you guys as participants and be representative of the respective states, correct. And I'm just sharing the details in the chat box. You can take it up. And yeah, that's from our side. And over to you, Stephen. You can take these questions which are there in the chat box, and then we are almost done with today's session.
Thank you. Yeah, like if any of you have to go, please do. It's lovely meeting you all virtually. If it would be helpful, I'm very happy to do another session at some point if there are more questions. Yeah, don't worry. I'm just reading through the questions now. I'll answer everything that's been put in the box. So I think Ramita, you said you're quite puzzled on a few topics. So do you want to ask those questions, or shall I come back to you?
Warm greetings, sir. Am I audible?
Yeah, please. Yeah, can hear you.
While in a debate, sir, I'm often left tongue-tied by the point given by my opponent. While it's a debate, they put forward a counter-argument that actually makes sense. So at such moments, how are we supposed to regard it? Are we ought to disagree with our opponent, or go against their opinions and perceptions to disagree with them? And sir, I also want to improve my accent because at the moment, it is a crossover between various tones.
Thank you. Answering your questions in reverse order. For what it's worth, I really like your accent. I think it's very clear, and like it sounds unique, but in a really nice way. So I wouldn't feel under any pressure to change your accent at all. If, however, you did want to, really it's just, and sorry, I appreciate I'm kind of repeating myself here, but it's really about just practicing speaking in a particular way. So when I was younger, had it wasn't my accent so much as I just didn't speak very formally because of how I grew up. So it was really just trying to read and listen to kind of more formal ways of speaking and trying to mirror those. But honestly, like if it's just on accent, I absolutely wouldn't spend any time if I were you trying to change yours. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it whatsoever. Just focusing on now on your other question. I'm just going to reread it. Okay, yeah, I understand what you're saying. So your question is, sometimes in a debate, the other side makes a point which actually you agree with. What do? Do you agree with it, or do you disagree with it, even though you're not quite sure at the time how to respond? Is that fair?
Yes, sir. That's about it.
Yeah, great. So I think it actually goes back to the answer I just gave on the question of how to deal with facts. And it ties in my answer on rebuttal, which is sometimes you can accept what another team says and then explain why either that's a good thing for your side, or, and this is a direct answer to your question, say, I can accept that, but there's something else we have said which is more important than what you have said. So for example, going back to the death penalty, they might say some innocent people are going to die and that's terrible. You might accept that, you might agree with it, but then you would say, however, whilst it's really unfortunate if someone innocent died, what we have said already is that the greater good is more important, and therefore that is more important, the following reason, than an innocent person dying. So if you ever find yourself having to accept something someone else has said, try and give something on your side you can explain is more important than what they've said, right? Does that make sense?
Thank you so much, sir. I actually understood what you were saying. I'm quite flattered as well. It was a honor.
No problem. Because I think the honest thing is, in debates, people forget sometimes that in my opinion, the best way to win a debate is to be reasonable, right? So if the motion is fair, there's of course going to be arguments the other side make which are true or which sound convincing. Instead of pretending that's not the case, we should accept it and reduce its impact, right? And then say, even though I've reduced the impact, I acknowledge it might still happen or it's still valid, but here's something we're saying that's more important than what you're saying.
Okay, sir, thank you. I'll keep your suggestions in mind whilst debating in the near future.
Yeah, please do. If you still struggle with it, then please just get in touch. That's not a problem.
Student, just last request, as you know, we already been someone left. Can you please put your camera on? We can take a one snap together with Steven.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I've still got a couple of questions to answer. I'll answer those after the photo then. No problem.
Sure.
Yeah.
everyone, I guess, in my
shy
screen,
students.
Few are not there with the camera. Ramika, Reddy, Raktim, you can, put it back. Arshdeep. Let me just take a screenshot. And just a second. Vikramaditya, you want to put your camera on? I guess great. We have taken the snap. Yeah, you can, answer the last question.
Thank you. Okay, so reading the question out. I'm a beginner and I've been introduced to debate, and we're given a topic and I'm given a short span of time to prepare the content. So when it comes to preparing content and then the opposing team mentions a point which we're not familiar with, what can we do in this situation? In connection to this, is there any particular strategy to adapt when it comes to debate? Really good questions. Part of it, I hope I've answered in my last answer, which is try and reduce the impact of it as best you can. So for example, using that example again of death penalty, opposition says the problem with the death penalty is you're going to kill innocent people. If you're on government, you should say, here's why it's very unlikely we'll kill innocent people, but we acknowledge there may still be a small chance. However, whilst that's unfortunate, it's more important that we protect the majority, and here's why we do that, right? So that's what you can do. The other thing is, when someone makes a point you're not familiar with, is it goes back all the way back to my first answer on rebuttal, right? Which is to try and think to yourself, are they making a point which is the opposite of a point we are making? If so, I'm going to tie the two together and reiterate the point we're making. If not, let me try and work out what the premise of the point they're making is, right? If you can't do that, I would be honest at that point and just say, I really don't understand the point you're making. Please can the next speaker re-explain that point, and we'll be happy to respond, right? Because you're being honest, you're telling the judges, look, I'm not ignoring it, I just don't understand it, right? And that happens sometimes. Someone is either the other side has not explained it very well, or you've not heard it. Either way, at least then it gives you a chance for them to repeat it, and then you can deal with it. And yeah, in terms of strategy to adapt when that happens, like I said, just go through those methods. First of all, think, have they said, do I understand what they've said? If not, ask them to clarify. If I've understood it, but I'm not familiar with it, ask, have we said something which is in response to it? If not, try and understand what within that argument it's premised on and attack that point. Does that answer your question? You can give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you're, yeah? Okay, great. Thank you. Do I have an Instagram handle? Unfortunately, I'm not cool enough to have an Instagram handle. So no, I don't have Instagram.
Okay. And others who are there, they can, join us on the Instagram. Correct? We keep posting about our latest upcomings, and I will just share our Insta handle over here. Anyone with questions? I guess anyway, we just sort of expended quite a time. So thanks a lot, Stephen. It was nice to have you. Sorry, someone is saying something?
Yeah, exactly. I have a question. Is that, can you put up the best debate you have ever done, like this demo or a sample for us?
Yeah, I think it's online. I'll find it and I'll send it to Kamal and you'll circle it to you.
Not a video or something like right now.
Right, so do you want me to just tell you what the motion was?
Anything that you find suitable or the most interesting one, quite memorable?
Oh, memorable ones I've been in, I think the world semi-final about having economic zones where only women can work or have businesses. I thought that was a really good, interesting debate. I don't think this one's online, unfortunately, or at least my speeches might be, but the whole debate isn't. We had to defend, we were opening government in LSE Open Final 1 year, which was on this house would allow individuals to consent to anything. So the debate ended up being about slavery. That was very difficult, but intellectually very interesting. And yeah, I would say those two come to mind as very interesting debates. There were quite a few at Euros, which again are on Zagreb Euros. It's all on YouTube, which were interesting about like oil regimes and police forces and the such. But those two come to mind, first of all. I think there's one last query that's getting typed.
Is there a question? I guess no.
I think it's being typed at the moment.
Okay, I guess that's great, Steven, and will be great. Have you been to India? Otherwise,
yeah. So I've been to Chennai.
Okay.
I was meant to go. I'm meant to be coming this December for my friend's wedding, but we're not sure if it's going ahead, unfortunately.
Okay. That will be perfect because so the Indian Debating League, let's see, we currently are looking to host it, the finals at the end of October. And if you're coming there, we will love to host you, create a grand, sort of place to put debating, because in-person debating will be extraordinary to do after quite a time. Last 1 year, it's quite a time, but still, like we have you. But if you come to India, we will love to have you with us. And
no, I would happily do that. And if there's any help I can give you with the IDL or anything else, just let me know. Yeah, I think it's a great.
Sure. We will love to have you. Thanks a lot, and thanks a lot, Steven, to come here. And we love your answers, and likely our student will take them, and we will come back with more questions to you. And thanks a lot for coming. We will keep
my
doing
pleasure.
this.
Thank you for organizing. Thank you everyone for your involvement. It's lovely to see a new generation of excited students. So very happy to help, and happy to kind of jump on another call in the future if that would be useful.
Okay. Over to everyone. Thanks of luck. We will see you everyone in the ideal participation. We will keep doing master classes. Okay. Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
No problem.
Thank you, sir.
Everyone.
Thank you very much, sir.
Bye.
Bye, sir. Have a nice day, sir.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
No problem.